Look, calling for a coach's job has not been my jam, but after last night's loss to Notre Dame, something's got to be done.
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, this is welcome to Locked On Boston College, your team every day. I'm your host, AJ Black of Eagle Insider. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, our FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Thank you all for listening. Today's episode, we're going to start talking about official visits as the first known official visitor in the June session is confirmed for Boston College. One coach for BC football is getting potentially looked at for another job. And we're going to kick things off with basketball. On Wednesday night, Boston College hosted Notre Dame for game number 2 of their season series against the Fighting Irish at Conti Forum at 9 p.m. Nice night game, which with the way things are going at Boston College, it was Conti morgue to the extreme. No one showed up. The student section was dead, and they had every right to not be there because if they stayed, they would have watched another miserable, heartbreaking loss. Now, on one hand, you could say to yourself, this team isn't all that talented. They're not getting blown out in most of these games. They are against like Duke and Louisville. Hey, they're right there. They're just at the edge of being competitive because they only lost by 4 in this one. But on the other hand, it just highlights the issues that are going on and really solidifies in your brain that you don't have the right head coach because this team cannot win. Like a good head coach would have beaten Notre Dame, would have beaten Syracuse, would have beaten UNC, and you would have 5 ACC wins right now. But you don't because, again, last night, BC had a lead late in this game. I think it was 6 at one point, and they blew it. They fell apart in double overtime and lost. They had the ball with a chance to tie it, and they weren't able. They lost by 3, and the best play that they could come up with was a fadeaway jump shot by Dion Brown. Folks, I'm not going to get into the nitty gritty of this game. I'm just telling you from a gut feeling from watching this that this is not, as I've said before, this is not an NIL issue. This is not a transfer portal issue. This is a guy who has players out there that are busting their butts. Every one of these guys. Donald Hand looks like an all ACC player. Dion Brown is improving. You have guys like Fred Payne coming off the bench that are playing well. Chad Venning has been a rock all year. You have these guys out there that are trying their best, and they need that killer instinct at the end, and that comes from the coaching, and they don't have it. So when I look at losses like this, in what world would it even matter if you had Tony Bryan, a 5-star out there, or Quinton Post, or Devin McLaughlin? If you have a coach that does not know how to win, that's on him, not on your players. You could blow out teams, but you're not built to win games because your coach doesn't know what to do at the end of games. And it happened again today. Like, they just continually lose leads, fall apart late. That's just what they keep doing. So I'm going back to this, if Blake James wants another year of this with no one paying attention, because I got to tell you right now, no one you can bring in the transfer portal is going to make eyeballs come to Boston College in 2025. Nobody, you would have to go out and rip off, you'd have to go perfect in out of conference play for folks to be like, oh, this is a team worth watching. And that's not going to happen. How many years of Earl Grant losing to Albany, losing to Dartmouth, losing to, Tarleton State have we seen? It's just going to continue happening. And next year is going to be a waste of another year. So Blake James has to watch this and go, okay, so my team is not even going to make the ACC tournament because they're not. They're not right now. And these are the games they should be winning. Syracuse is terrible. Syracuse just lost to Miami, who is the dregs right now. And you lost to them. Notre Dame, you had them and you lost to them. UNC is not good, and you lost to them. You had them on the ropes. That's what's so frustrating is the players get them to that point. And yes, they have to execute, but you have guys like what was it, the UNC game where they couldn't get the ball in bounds? Like issues like that, that's coaching. The coaches should have these guys knowing what they're supposed to do, and they don't. That's the facts. Like they should be practicing. Bill O'Brien in football. He's got these guys practicing all these different drills of what could happen. Basketball should be doing the same thing, and I bet you they're not, or they're not drilled in enough because you're seeing the results with 3 losses in the last 2 weeks that you should have won. I'm not going to do a fire Earl Grant episode, but I'm telling you right now, if Blake James has not seen what he needs to see to make a move for 2025, I don't know what he's waiting for, because this program right now is dead in the water. They're not going to be much better next year. Yeah, they could build off of some of the things they have. But as I continually say to you, if this team blows out, if they lose out, they don't make the ACC tournament. What reason, I apologize for my voice, my cold is back. What reason does Donald Hand have to come back here? Why would he ever come back to Boston College? He's going to leave. Someone's going to pay him. And so he could get money and go to a school that's going to win. Win-win for him. You have to make a move, because if you also make a move and you get a coach in here that is, got a high profile, you keep Donald Hand. Then you can build off something. So, yeah, I don't want to say I'm not a big guy going here and going, fire him. He stinks. Fire him. I'm looking at this logically right now as a program issue. Nothing is going to change in 1 year. Nothing is going to get better without a coaching change. You can tweak things, but this team, if you look at what you have and what is coming in, and you got some players coming in, but they got to be true freshmen. There's no way this team next year would be a tournament team. There's not. They're not going to magically learn how to win. They're not going to magically know how to do things. There's major systemic issues here going on with BC basketball. You got to think about it. This should have been the wake-up call if there has not already been one to Blake James. Blake James, I'm sure, has already seen what he needs to see. Now the big question is, will BC pay for it? If Blake James really does believe that he needs to make a coaching change here, will that contract that goes to 2029, is there enough room to buy it out? BC makes enough money off of these ACC deals. They should figure it out, okay? This program has potential in it. You have the New Balance deal. You have the city of Boston. BC basketball a long time ago, and I know many of you younger folks listening don't remember, was a hot ticket like 15, 20 years ago now. It can get back that way. You got to make the right move, though. And after watching them lose to Notre Dame, to me, it's pretty clear. It's got to start at the top. In our second segment, let's head over to football. As one football coach that BC has that I'm a big fan of is a potential candidate for a job at another school. I'll explain what I mean in just a moment. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off and you want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a better payout, you can combine your live bets in a same-game parlay. I love using FanDuel's live betting features. I used it during the big game this past weekend. Once the Philadelphia Eagles came out looking like they did, I got it on early on that spread, and it helped a lot. Whether I'm backing my Patriots for a late game rally or picking a player to hit a clutch 3, I never feel like I'm missing my chance. Plus, the app is easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if you bet $5 and you win. FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make your moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. This is Locked On Boston College. I'm your host, AJ Black. Again, apologize for the froggy throat. Something's going around my family. That's the joy of having kids. But I'm not giving up. I'm going to get through this episode with you. We're going to talk about football, and when you're done, you're going to go check out Locked On ACC with Alex Dono and Kenton Gibbs. They're talking all things Atlantic Coast Conference. Check that out on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Now, you would think at this point, with practice starting on March 15th, that the coaching staff for Boston College is set. And on one hand, you'd be right. Like Bill O'Brien has said on his podcast that his staff is solidified for next year. But I bring this up. That does not mean that his staff is solidified from being poached. Now, you look around the country, there's schools that are finishing up their playoff runs. There's the national champion Ohio State, who lost their offensive and defensive coordinator. Penn State lost their defensive coordinator and then added Ohio State's. The NFL is grabbing lots of guys from the college ranks, and that is causing a lot of upheaval. So, there's dominoes. While Penn State or Ohio State is not going to grab anyone off Boston College's staff, at least not yet, they could, as things happen, start to look at BC coaches. And that's where things have started at the running back position at Penn State. Now, according to Tyler Calvaruso, who, if you're a fan of Eagle Insider, he was the editor before me, he had his list of who could be running backs coach options at Penn State. And he had listed Savon Huggins as a potential candidate for that job. Huggins came from New Jersey, which is a hotbed for Penn State recruiting. He's from the area. He's done I think he's done a nice job at BC. You've had running backs like Kai Robichaux and Trayshawn Ward and even Turbo Richard doing really well. He's built that running back room into a formidable opponent every time he's out there. So would he do it? I would think, I have to think that when you're talking about going from a school like Boston College to getting offers from Penn State, that's a no-brainer. I hate saying it because you want your school to be the end result for anything, but let's be realistic, folks. Like, you saw it with Pat Kraft, right? Pat Kraft got an offer from Penn State, and he was out in 2 seconds. Anyone, Phil Troutwain, who was the offensive line coach here, I think he got released when Adazio left, but he was out at Penn. No, he went on his own. He went on his own to Penn State. So if Penn State wants somebody, they're going to get him. Now, Savon Huggins has been a good recruiter. He's, I think New Jersey is about to have a bit of a revival in terms of how BC is recruiting. Because I one of the biggest surprises with Jeff Hafley was that BC really wasn't getting a big footprint in New Jersey. It felt like it was an afterthought for them. But O'Brien has had recruits that they're starting to really make some headway with. And Huggins has been a key factor there. He's also done a nice job in recruiting running backs, I think. Bringing in Bo McCormick and Mekhi Dodd last year. They've got some good ones, I think, coming up this year. Huggins has been pretty good, and I don't want them to lose him. But I think at some point when you have positional coaches, you have to understand that it's like basically a short-term rental. Like when you're looking at trajectory of coaching, someone like Savon Huggins is not going to sit there and say, I'm going to stay as the running backs coach forever at BC, or B, I'm not going to just sit here and wait for a promotion at Boston College. They play the game. They have to. Huggins already did this. He was a coach at UMass. So he had some other coaching jobs before that, and BC was the next logical step. So for a guy like him who's been successful, who's done the right thing, his next logical step would be a school like Penn State. That would make sense. Now, Penn State, there's a bunch of other names listed, so this could be a big nothing burger. But I think it brings up the point, too, that when you're looking forward, a lot of these guys, they have a shorter shelf life because they're going to want to bounce up. You may have guys, and I don't know where they're at, but guys maybe like Darrell Wyatt. Darrell Wyatt also has another attachment to his job. He's assistant head coach. But you have other guys that, they may want to go to the NFL. They may want to try a bigger program and see if they can push their career goals a little further. So it would make sense. It would. And, you don't want to lose him. It would be interesting to see, though. We saw Jordan Thomas get hired as defensive line coach. That was really Bill O'Brien's one hire this offseason. But that offensive staff, other than Will Long, it's really been intact from Jeff Hafley. John DiBiase was a grad. I think he was a grad assistant or an offensive analyst. Excuse me. And you had Huggins, Wyatt, Applebaum. They've all been there. So this would be another chance if this happens for O'Brien to grab someone that he knows. But again, he's one of countless offers. So I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm just saying it's interesting to think about, especially with a month left. If you know that O'Brien would probably have a Rolodex going, that guy, that guy. He probably has his options available. But I think another final little thought about this is if a guy like Huggins goes to a school like Penn State, it actually does kind of help BC. And the reason it helps BC is it raises the profile of the program. It makes it more desirable for coaches to come here, which it is already because you have an NFL level coach in Bill O'Brien. But when they see that they can come here, make their bones and then bounce that up to a bigger job, younger, good coaches are going to want to come here. So if Huggins was to get that, yes, it would stink because you want him to stay here. But on the other hand, you're using him using BC as a stepping stone will help bring in attractive younger candidates in the future. So it's just it's a big board. We don't even know if Penn State's even contacted him. It's worth talking about though. And other than that, I think the staff is pretty much set. I know folks have had other names that they were hoping would move on, but they're not at this point. They've been out recruiting. They've been out. Craig Fitzgerald's doing his weight stuff. They're about a month away now from the start of the season. Start of spring practice. I don't think there'll be any other changes. Now, in our final segment, speaking of recruiting, let's get into official visit season as BC landed their first locked in official visitor for the upcoming June segment. I'll explain what that means in just a moment. Welcome back. This is Locked On Boston College. I'm your host, AJ Black. Thank you all who have made us your first listen every day. If you have us subscribed on YouTube, wherever you get podcasts, I want to shout you out as well. You guys are my MVPs, my everydayers who know what to expect here at BC, the only daily Boston College podcast. I want to thank you here on Valentine's Day and hope you guys all have a great day too. When you're done with this episode, check out Locked On College Football as well. That's a great podcast. Now, let's get into recruiting. There have been a few new offers out. And before I get into this official visit, I want to also say, I tweeted it out. Many folks use Twitter as their news source for Boston College sports. And I hope you use me because I don't just tweet out anything I see. Some folks do, and they don't understand what they're seeing. Yesterday, there was a bunch of new quarterback offers going out, and I noticed Jonathan DiBiase wasn't tagged in any of them. So the first one was this guy, Legend Bay, who has a absolutely awesome kicking last name, who is this speedy, he's listed as a quarterback on 247, 26, I think he's class 26 kid from Texas. And he's listed. I saw people retweeting him as like BC's offering a new quarterback. They're not. He's not a quarterback. He's an athlete. He's 5'9". Do you honestly think Bill O'Brien wants Thomas Castellanos 2.0 in terms of just size? I'm not talking about anything else. No, he wants a typical quarterback. I got the details. He's being recruited as an athlete. And man, he would be a great athlete. His track numbers, sub 11 200-yard dashes and things like that. Like this kid is legit. He also has offers from Ohio State, so they see it too. So I don't expect him to be at BC. But that was one piece. So like you might go into Boston College Twitter and say hit that retweet and not know that that's actually an athlete. The bigger issue was there was someone out there impersonating a Boston College staffer. There was someone, John Smith, who is a assistant quarterbacks coach. I talked to the school. Well, they actually reached out to me like, hey, AJ, that person isn't real. Can you make sure everyone knows that? So I'm making sure you know that. This guy is offering folks on Twitter. He's not real. So if you want to make sure that you get the actual accurate information, follow me because I'm not going to retweet garbage. I'm going to get you context on things and you'll get the right ideas. So go to AJ Black 247. But the bigger news and what we're talking about here is official visit season, which is one of my favorite parts of the calendar as a recruiting nerd. we know that I would say most of the committed class 2026 kids are going to be taking their official visits. Those aren't as interesting because they're coming here anyways. There's nothing real, really out there that you're going to be watching for. The bigger thing is the new ones, and there's going to be names that are going to pop up taking official visits that will surprise you. And the first one is from New Jersey. This is the first kid that we've heard from because we've seen other schools getting official visits. The first Boston College player that's not committed, that is looking at BC, announced that he'll be taking an official visit to BC the first week of June. His name, and I hope I get it right, is Nyqir Helton, a wide receiver out of New Jersey. He's a 3-star recruit. He's got some good offers. He's also going to visit Syracuse, but schools like Illinois have also looked at him. BC is in great shape for this kid. He's been here a few times. He's a 3-star. He's not a high 3-star. So, I know a lot of folks are excited about that kind of stuff, but his offer list is pretty good. He's done some good things at his school. I think you're going to see wide receivers is going to be a position we're going to be watching for because I think there's going to be quite a few wide receivers making official visits. I've seen the staff kind of pushing around on some wide receivers. I think that'll be something to watch for. Now, you're going against Syracuse. That's going to be that's the new recruiting battle. I think that's worth watching a lot. There's no love lost between the BC and Syracuse staff. We saw it last year when they flipped Marcus Upton. There's a little bit of machismo going on between the two of them, and that the schools want to beat each other for the recruits that they want. So you best believe that this is going to be a big battle. Right now, BC's done a good job of getting the guys that they want and not letting Syracuse get them. I mean, they got Marcus Upton, they got Bo McCormick, they beat them on the field. Bill O'Brien has their number so far, but this will be one to watch. And when you're walking at official visits, one thing that I always watch for, and we saw it happen last year, a big factor is who gets him on campus first, because sometimes they'll lay out 5 visits they're going to take in a month, and that's their plan. But it takes one visit. They fall in love with that school, come in on the spot, then don't take any of their other visits. It happened quite a few times last year. So he's going to Syracuse first. And Fran Brown is going to be pushing. Fran Brown is going to try to get him to not take that visit to BC. That's going to be a battle that he's going to want to win. So that's something to watch for. Yes, he's taking an official visit to BC. And if I was a betting man, I would say he's going to try to take both because those are his 2 leaders, is BC and Syracuse. But this is the world of college football recruiting. Fran Brown is an excellent recruiter. He knows what to say to get guys to stay. So would I be surprised if, he goes out there and never comes to BC? It wouldn't surprise me. But I still think BC, I think he really wants to get to BC for a visit. So it's going to take a lot from Brown to get him to not take that. So this is the kind of official visit stuff that I love. Who are the contestants? Who are the combatants in this battle? Sometimes you get a guy who's got a few and you can see right through it. Like, he's visiting BC and Miami, Ohio, and it's like, that guy's probably going to be at BC. But let's wrap things up here. My name's AJ Black, and again, I apologize. I sound like a frog. I'm going to be drinking a lot of tea today, a lot of it with honey, to hopefully get my voice better for Friday's show. But I'm glad you guys stayed and listened. You can follow me on Twitter at AJBlack247. Check me out on Eagle Insider. And I hope to see you all again tomorrow for another episode of Locked On Boston College. Your team every day.